I'm Justin with KrashFab, and you're listening to the Trailhead Podcast. It's one of those things where it's just like, why would you learn on the biggest safety thing on a vehicle? Like a roll cage is there to literally protect your life, and you're going to learn how to weld, a skill that they say only less than 1% of the population of the world knows how to do. You're going to learn that skill on the fly on something to protect your life. Nope, you're an idiot.
Rev it up, let it roar, feel the ground shake. Pedal down, dust flying, no time to waste. The trailhead's calling, engine power on a roll. This is where trails start and stories unfold. On the starlit skies, where the wild things roam. Every trail a journey, every Jeep a home. Meet at the trailhead, where the wild ones run. The dust kicks high and the day's not done. With the road wide open and the dirt in our soul. This is where trails start and our stories unfold.
Welcome to the Trailhead, everybody. I'm JD, and tonight it's just me, and joining me, though, is Justin. Oh, and I do this all the time. Is it Kroeck?
Yeah, it's pronounced Kroeck like Shrek.
Kroeck, okay.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I should have asked, because, that makes it easier and much more professional when we finally get on the air. Justin is the owner, founder of KrashFab. And you guys are a welding outfit turned Jeep outfit. Just kind of, we'll kind of dig into all of it, I think, here in just a little bit.
All
so, but thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And I know you were kind of part of my walking around trail hero and doing my little, just kind of shaking hands with everybody and making sure that everybody knew who the hell we were.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's it was my first trail hero. How many of those have you been going to?
That's my second one this year.
Okay.
This year was totally different than last year. Last year was, I think I had more fun last year, but we did more wheeling this year, if that makes sense.
Why do you think that is?
Well, last year there wasn't
was it more work?
Last year there was a lot more people in the vendor booth area. And so the vendor booth was like really busy. And so we were hooking and booking in the vendor booth and trying to meet new people and, have good conversations with folks, see what kind of needs we can help them with. And so last year was really busy. This year was so hot. And I think they had so many other events going on that people just weren't in the vendor booth at all. So it was a little bit frustrating. But so we ended up doing a lot more wheeling. And kind of our priority in getting content and getting out on the trails to meet people, showcase our parts that way.
Yeah. That's the kind of perfect opportunity to do it, is where the stuff that you're going to use and make is going to break, right?
Yeah.
Is in the 100-degree heat in the middle of the desert at that moment. So,
well, and just like being on the trail, like with what you were talking about before the show, like, hitting your back bumper on a ledge, like our back bumper is really tucked in, so you don't hit that back bumper. But the only way to really showcase that is to be on the trails and have people see it, so yeah. And then last year, it was a little bit more, I guess, wide open, I guess. And I had my buddy come down with a helicopter, and like we got to do some really fun stuff with the helicopter. And this year, Rich had all that shut down. He said no fun stuff. So it was a little bit more.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I have to understand, were you flying this helicopter? How was this? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my friend lives up in like Salt Lake area, and he flew down and hung out with us for a couple days, and we got some really fun giveaway rides for some veterans. We gave some giveaway rides away and got to do like tours over Santa Hollow and stuff like that. So that was really fun. It was great to give back to the community like that, and kind of join the event and the event purpose. But yeah, this year we weren't allowed to do any of that, so it was kind of a bummer.
Gotcha. Was it, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with it, do you know if it was because of the park or if it was just because of the event and the way they had it set up this year? Are you guys not sure?
Well, there's the answer that I got, and then there's my feelings. So
Okay.
Um,
And you don't have to say them. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire to tell you to expound your opinions on record. So,
the answer I got was it was from the park.
okay.
There was a new director that didn't want any of that going down. So, and that's fine. But I do know that the previous year we hurt a lot of feelings. Because we had such a big presence and we had just a ton of rigs on the trails and then the helicopter overhead. Like we were pretty loud and, you know, some other companies I know complained about that. So it is what it is, you know.
Gotcha.
Everybody wants to have the bigger foot forward. So I understand.
Yeah. I'm betting that both sides of that coin are probably a little bit true.
Yeah.
I know, Rich announced all those changes to the way Trail Hero is going to be and where it's going to be. And I think a lot of that is from situations like that, where I think the park had just kind of reached a point where they're like, we're just not going to let you do some certain things. In fact, I think the only aerial footage I saw was an FPV drone that they were running around there. And that's only because you can kind of get away with that because of weight restrictions and droning.
Right.
So, yeah, but I get it. It's I think for a lot of people there was some frustration around that, and it was just 103 degrees every day in the middle of the afternoon.
It was
It was brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was hot. Yeah, you were doing
It's
morning
absolutely
runs and then you were doing night runs. And
Yeah.
other than that, you were hiding in the shade because it was hot. Yeah.
Just they couldn't keep up. There was a booth making some sort of lemonade, slushy, tea things, and I was dropping $12 a pop like on a regular basis for it. I'm like, I don't care. It's
Yeah.
good and it's too damn hot out here for that. So, all right, well, so let's get back to you. And I want to talk about you a little bit first before we like kind of get into the KrashFab, because I have a feeling, well, the two are probably going to lead into each other.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up at? Where did you get started?
So I grew up in Northern California, kind of like the Sacramento area and that kind of region. And
Okay.
when I was 14 years old, I bought an International Scout. And so
Ooh.
that's kind of my introduction to off-roading and that kind of stuff. And I really wanted a Bronco. Like, you have no idea how bad I wanted a Bronco. But in Northern California, a rusted out crap box for all
Yeah.
purposes, with like no motor, no running gear, was still $10,000.
Ooh, yeah. Sounds about right.
So I couldn't afford that being 14. So my dad was like, hey, what about a Scout? And back in those days, you know, a Scout, nobody wanted those. Nobody even knew what that was. And
Right?
I picked up a Scout for like $500 and I was wheeling. And nowadays you can't do that. So that's a different story.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do a whole show about how expensive the basics have become.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know, and it's just everything is so expensive. And so I get it. But yeah, so grew up here and bought myself a Scout and started hitting the mountains. And I've always been into like off-roading. So I've been racing dirt bikes since I was like 10. And so I'm super involved in that community as well. And, you know, my free time, I'm in the mountains, dirt bike riding and, you know, hanging out. And then so off-roading and Scout stuff fit right into it. You know, we could go camping and go wheeling and, you know, go dirt bike riding. So it was all fun.
I mean, that kind of answers my question of like, how did you just kind of get into it? And it just sounds like it was just a natural progression for you to just kind of head out into the wilderness out there.
Yep. No, for sure. Yeah. And then that's where like my craft started back then in those days too. Cause you know, the $500 Scout I bought, it didn't run, it needed brakes, you know, it needed a bunch of work. So picked that thing up and started learning how to wrench. And, you know, then I wanted some sliders and some bumpers. Nobody really made anything at all, you know, 25 years ago for Scouts that was worth a damn. And I couldn't afford to go to a fab shop and have them make what I wanted. So, you know, started buying welders and started learning to fabricate stuff and started working part-time, you know, after high school and at my buddy's little fab shop he had in his garage and learning how to do metal stuff. It just has evolved from there over the years. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the worse. So,
I mean, yeah, typically what happens when you go down a rabbit hole like that is that there's usually a lot of good. There's some bad. There's always some bad that goes along with it. But how did you start with the welding piece of things? Was that just kind of like, did you have any kind of an engineering background, or are you just kind of one of those people that had Lego sets when you were growing up and that's how you did that?
definitely had a lot of Legos, and I still do. They're in the shop.
They're all over this house on a rate. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
It's I asked that question on purpose
Yeah.
because every builder I find we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. And then when I was in high school, I started taking engineering courses. And I was actually taking Sac State, which is a state level college in California, courses in high school for CAD drafting. Back in those days, it was all 2D stuff though, so just really basic 2D. But I got really good at that, and that's kind of when I turned the progression of, okay, well, I don't want to sit in an office full time and just draw. I want to be able to do my R&D on the computer, design stuff, and then I want to go to the shop and I want to build stuff. So then I never followed through with that career path as far as going to, get an engineering degree and that kind of stuff, because I knew at that point that I didn't want to just sit in an office. I didn't want that degree.
Okay.
So then, I was kind of helping my buddy in his shop, and I never got to do any welding. I just was cutting steel, and I was sanding parts and preparing all the pieces to be welded, which I did that for years. And just learning that craft in itself of fabrication and prep work was super helpful. And then I would watch him weld, and what he welded was all TIG welding. So it's the higher echelon of welding. And I would just literally finish my work. I would just put a hood on. I would just watch him for hours TIG weld. And and that's what really, really caught the bug in my head of like, welding's cool. So went down that rabbit hole. I think when I was like 18 or 19, I did take a like SACS or local college level course on welding, and kind of learned some more basics. I never run stick before, so ran some stick welding, learned how to use oxyacetylene torch, and kind of got some basic fundamentals of terminology, like what does amperage do, what do all these different settings do, and what are we doing to the metal and that kind of stuff. So that was really important. And that just sent me down the rabbit hole even further of, okay, now I need to buy my own machine. Now I need to start learning. Now I need to perfect my craft. And that's been 20-year thing in the making. So, and every day I'm still trying to get better.
It's one of those things that you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like from how you talk about it, it sounds like it's something that you actually just enjoy doing. The business piece of things is we all got to make a living, and we all have to get out there and just exist at some level. But as long as you kind of enjoy what you're doing at some base level, it makes it so much easier. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, the business side of things, I've been doing this full time now for 6 years as a business, and that has been a complete trial by fire. I mean, every day, every week, there's a new, situation I'm trying to handle with business. And now this person wants money, and okay, now I got to get this permit, and just, oh my gosh, it's never ending. And, but like when I can actually just put the hood down and weld, that's a good day. And those are the best days that I have. So I love the craft. I love the trade. I mean, and even like last night, I couldn't sleep. And so at 10:30, I was sitting at the computer, drawing some parts and, just trying to perfect that craft some more too. So it's fun stuff, and it's live, eat, breathe it, it really is.
Yeah. And so you're still in California, right? You've been there for the entirety?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I love this state for a couple of reasons, and then the rest of the reasons are why everybody hates Californians.
Okay.
And like, there's great wheeling here. We've got really good trails. We've got, a good community of off-roaders here. Like Northern California off-roading community is massive.
Yeah.
And like, if you look at all of like half of all the Ultra 4 shops that produce top tier Ultra 4 cars and all that stuff, they're in Northern California. All the Gomez brothers, and there's so many off-roading people in Northern California. So there's a lot to stay here, but tax wise and business wise, I would love to leave here. So it's a tough one.
I get it. It's in that situation, it would be like if somebody were to ask me to move from a Western state of any kind and move back to the Midwest. I'm like, I don't like it's the off-roading is part of what I do and who I am now. And I can't leave a place where I can go do it. The same thing goes for business and, the various things that you get running up. And yeah, it sucks, man. Maybe I think I just had Brian Beatrice JKU was on talking, and he really loves the taxes in Nevada. Like it's just over the border.
Yeah, yeah. And my buddy Randy Slauson, he lives up in Gardnerville, which is like 2 hours from here in Nevada.
Okay.
And so like I love going over there, and then like Phil with Liberty Mountain Fab, he lives over there too. So like we go over there,
Oh, cool.
go ride dirt bikes, which is wicked. But yeah, it's not far, but it's a different world over there too. So, and like I love it over there, but housing got really expensive over there after COVID, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
housing is expensive, and then my wife, as much as I love her, she doesn't like anything with the desert. And so she considers, the high desert, but she even considers like Sand Hollow. She considers that the desert. I'm like, kinda, but there's mountains all around you,
Yeah. Yeah. Like it is a deserty climate,
Yeah.
but it's not like, you're not running for water.
No. So yeah, that's
All right.
a hard bridge. Yeah, maybe someday we'll cross it, but yeah, I do like it in Nevada.
Colorado's nice too. And I mean, taxes are better here than they were for me in Illinois. So, and I know everybody's got a different opinion on those things, but
Yeah.
it's not too shabby here.
No, I
The
love
cost of
Colorado.
housing is ridiculous.
Yeah, my family's actually from Colorado. I lived there for the first 5 years of my life. Colorado Springs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
In where?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, so that's you're my back door. I'm here in Monument.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I mean, like I don't remember it much because I was only 5, but yeah, I mean, we go back there and ride dirt bikes and go all over Colorado to go ride dirt bikes, and it's beautiful. I love it out there. I really do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had moved here from Illinois about 10 years ago, and I'd had a Jeep, and we just went up in the mountains, and I just didn't stop. And then I got hooked on it, and then 10 years later, I'm talking to you about off-roading and the various crap and money that I have now spent over the last 10 years on various parts and equipment.
It adds up super fast.
I think that a lot of times you don't realize how much you've added to the Jeep until you like take, or whatever you're driving, until you take a step back and you're just like, oh, so that's how much I've spent.
Yeah.
I cannot share that number with my wife.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And even like when we do like a full in-house Jeep build, I'll do like a rough estimate of like, hey, we're going to do this, and this, and this is about the cost, And I've had multiple times where guys are like, okay, that's the price, right? And I'm like, well, that's where we're going to start.
Yeah, like this is custom, right?
Yeah. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, stuff generally comes up, and 9 times out of 10, you want to add something here or there, and okay, now we're going to do this, now we're going to make this cooler. So then the price ends up changing quite a bit. I've never had a bill leave for the actual price that I quoted. So, and it's not like my fault. Like I'm trying to just add money, but we're trying to make the customer happy with the vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess let's take a step back. So now KrashFab is the culmination of all of the welding and stuff and all of the kind of stuff that the CAD design and everything else, so that you're kind of doing this. What exactly are you doing at KrashFab?
We do a lot of everything.
All right.
So the Jeep side of stuff, which is mainly what we're here to talk about, is the Jeep stuff. We do.
Oh, I don't care. I'll talk about ATVs. I'll talk about whatever you want. Our audience is vast.
Yeah. Well, we do. So we do anything and everything metal and welding fab.
Okay.
So a lot of the stuff, I would say 60% of my business is Jeep work. So we're either working on Jeeps or we're building and shipping parts, and helping folks with their builds. So that's probably about 60% of my business, and takes up the majority of the work week.
Okay.
So that's working on the actual Jeeps that are here at the shop, putting something on the lift and doing a project, as well as we get orders online, or we get people calling in wanting certain things, and we'll build those and ship those out so they can do their builds in their garages, and get their projects done. So we do a lot of both of those things. The other sides of KrashFab are more of like the industrial sides of stuff. We actually do a bunch of work for mines that are in Nevada mainly. And they're mainly
Oh,
all gold mines. So we're building
that's fun.
crusher parts and we're building conveyor parts and stuff like that for gold mines. And then
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah, it's pretty fun. And then I have a full line of rescue equipment that I actually build, and that gets sold actually worldwide. So that's pretty cool. It's
Like commercial rescue equipment,
Mhm.
or is this like
Yeah.
rescue equipment that any Joe Harry or Dick can buy?
I mean, anybody can buy it. But essentially, the pieces that I make are for like what they call high angle rope rescue. So they put these big anchors into the ground and hang ropes off of them and hang off cliffs off of these anchors. And so they use that for rescuing people that have gone off cliffs.
Yeah.
Texas Border Patrol just purchased pallets of this stuff so they can outfit their trucks. So yeah,
Okay.
it kind of goes all over the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then we have a structural stuff we do too. Like today, I was actually out on a structural steel project, um, building some stuff for a house. So we do it all.
Like that's I mean that's awesome. I It's one of those things where like when I met you, I would never have expected that that's a big portion of your business or even part of your business if I'm being honest. I mean, but all of it makes sense in the terms of people that need custom engineering, custom welding and all of those things that go along with it.
Well, and I really love it because all the different disciplines that I just talked about, they all
Mhm.
provide me value and continue to make me grow and to learn. Um, so like, I learned stuff with doing Jeeps and I'll apply that to the structural steel stuff. And then structural steel stuff, I apply that to welding in Jeeps because I've seen a lot of like welds fail in Jeeps, right? And so
Yeah.
like I'm applying structural steel welding certifications that I have so that I can make Jeeps stronger and, make the welds better so that they don't fail. So it all builds on each other and it just, it's ever evolving and growing, situation.
I think that makes the best equipment. I think the people that kind of have yeah, there's a lot of folks and there's something to be said. You go to college and you do a specific trade school and it's the only path you've ever been on, the only thing you've ever worked on. But I think when you kind of have this, when you open and expand what it is that you work on, even if it's just one trade that you've got, it gives you so much more experience to kind of apply the different things that you learn in different ways.
Yeah.
The one thing that has really kind of struck me over the last decade as I've come to understand off-roading and stuff like that is just exactly how much stress these vehicles go under, especially when you're pushing them hard and doing some of the stuff like in Sand Hollow.
Oh, for sure. And that's been a fun thing for me too, is like, the builds that we do and the parts we build, they get taken to the trails and they get the crap beat out of them, which is what I want. Like, I don't want something to sit in the garage. Like, I want it to go get pushed to its limits. Um,
Right.
and so, because that makes me learn too. I have the Jeeps come back to the shop after a few years and, do a big inspection and like, okay, like this worked out great. This worked out just like I planned. Okay, we need to make a change here. And so
Right.
that evolving is what I really like, and making things better. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's cool. That's good to know that, and that's something that you do is kind of bring back some of those. And I take it these are like, these are perennials, right? These are things that you offer all the time, kind of things that you just update the design once
Yeah.
in a while. And you're doing that by actually bringing vehicles in that have been running it for a while and inspecting them and saying, hey, look, this isn't quite holding like we wanted it to, or it could do better here, that kind of thing. I think that's awesome. Like,
Right.
I know manufacturers, Jeep, one of them that doesn't do that.
And they should, because I've seen some stuff come through the shop and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this left the factory like this, let alone has been driving down the road, 100,000 miles like this, because it's scary. And like the instance that I'm speaking about there was like robotic welds on a frame that
Yeah.
the robot missed the whole bracket, and it was like,
Oh no.
oh shoot, So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I get it. Like from a cost perspective, like you gotta do that. That's fine, but you gotta get the quality inspection and the rest like that. So, but
yeah,
uh, and I know that this episode is probably going to air a few weeks after we've actually talked about this on our live week show. But I mean, Carlos Tavares is out. So Jeep is already having to make some changes now because they're starting to realize that it's not just your build quality, it's your ability to quality check that build quality and make sure it doesn't go out your factory. All right, well, enough complaining about manufacturers that you go back and fix all of their problems. So what kind of stuff do you guys do locally there on Jeeps in terms of like welding projects? Do you guys have like a main line, or is it just kind of scattershot what anybody needs when they come in, or do people come to you like for specific stuff?
Um, in general, most of the guys that come to me, they're looking for like the full suspension kit, and
Hmm?
9 times out of 10, it's been a guy that has had this Jeep for a few years, and he's done. He bought the Jeep and he put on a 2-inch lift kit, and then he said, okay, I want to go to a 4-inch lift kit, and then he said, okay, I want a long arm, and then that stuff starts breaking, and then they do 1 tons, and then that stuff starts breaking, so then they end up at my shop, and then we cut all that off and we start over again. So typically it's a customer that has been through a few versions of their Jeep and has decided that they are ready to go to the next level, and
Okay.
they're ready to cut everything off and rip the Band-Aid off and do it again. So
And just get it done.
yeah. But like we do help out, wherever we can. Where our schedule does get pretty busy, but sometimes we've got guys that like, hey, I just need a PSC kit put on. Okay, no big deal. Or can you just weld the tabs on it for my hydro assist? Yeah, no big deal. So we do that a lot too for the local community and always help out where we can.
Okay. And I bring that up because it's this, if you're listening, if you missed it earlier, they're in Northern California there, but they ship a lot of parts. So
Yes.
you guys kind of have regular catalog of stuff that you guys offer?
So we have our website and our regular catalog. In the past few years, I've been really focused on like kind of like the harder core side of like off-roading. So, frame chop bumpers and my big suspension kits and doing the flat belly, moving the gas tank, and that's kind of been our specialty.
Okay.
But so at the same time though, that's not for everybody. So like I just
Right.
released like a bolt-on front bumper that's the smallest, lightest, most compact bolt-on front bumper that is on the market. So
That's awesome.
and I'm going to do the same thing with the rear. And I got some Gladiator parts that are going to be coming up pretty soon too. And then we're also branching out a little bit too into like full-size trucks. So I just made some really badass sliders for like a full-size Dodge. And those will also apply to like the Mega Wagon or Power Wagon, sorry.
The new Power Wagons.
Yeah. So they'll go to that thing too. And then I've got like, I'm going to make some sliders for my full-size F350 and going to do some bumper stuff. And I'm going to convince my wife to let me put a flatbed on my truck too. So stuff like that. And then some
Baby steps, man. Baby steps. One thing at a time.
one thing at a time. So I'm trying to expand the catalog and get into some different markets. I love the Jeep market, but it's also good to branch out a little bit too.
Yeah, we, all of those of us on the show, we all drive Jeeps with the exception of Alyssa.
Mhm.
I would actually like to have people that drive some more diverse stuff in it. Just Jeep is the one that saturated the market on that end, at least until recently. I feel like that reign might be coming to an end. And it's nice to see other types of vehicles out there. I like seeing the full size pickups. You can do a lot with them, especially if you lift them up a little bit and just do a little bit of tweaking to that design.
Yeah, they're fun.
What else is in the KrashFab catalog of stuff? Or do you guys do other than like kind of doing vendor events and things like that? Do you guys do any competition races or anything like that, or
No,
nothing crazy yet? Or do you want to?
I want to. It's just been a matter of funding it and time.
Money.
Because like I would love to go take the Jeep down to Johnson Valley and do King of the Hammers, right? But
Right.
can the Jeep drive down in Johnson Valley and do the trails? Yeah, no problem. But can it race it? It's not ready yet, And to go there and show up and actually have a chance, like I don't want to just half-ass show up. I want to show up to be able to actually compete. So, someday soon. But as of right now, we're just hitting the trails, having fun, and growing the business itself. And we'll see where it goes from there.
And I only ask the question because it's kind of like that next progression.
Yeah.
Like, and not everybody's like, I hate hustle culture. I hate the idea that you have to be constantly doing everything. Just you can focus on a few things and just kind of move forward. And and get some wins under your belt, and then get on to the bigger things.
Well, and then like my friend that has the helicopter, he was also like my business mentor, and so he taught me something too that was really good, and it's, you don't have to have every single product on the market, but if you got, your niche and you're 100% and you show out on that niche, then you can start growing and you can start expanding from there. But if you do one thing and do one thing well, then you can start growing that. But if you do 1,000 things like crap, then you're not going to do anything.
Yep. It was the same advice I got when we started this show.
Yeah.
And that was, you talk to your core and you talk to your niche, and then the people will kind of, follow around and eventually find you, and they found us. And it's sometimes you just have to trust the process. And I think the only thing that a lot of us would say to that is we'd wish we'd all started earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I do.
So you don't wheel King of Hammers. What's your favorite area like wheel in California? That's, and then outside of California, I'll give you the two because I usually just pin people for one.
So we have got great trails up here in Northern California. We've got Rubicon and Fordyce, and then Slick Rock is the closest to my house here.
Okay.
So we probably wheel Slick Rock the most just because that's super close to our house, and I've got a bunch of friends that live up in Sonora, which is about 45 minutes from here. So we go hit that trail quite a bit because it's just super close.
Okay.
So we do that a lot. We make a lot of trips to the Rubicon every year, and then try to hit the Fordyce a couple times a year too, because it's from our location. It's like 3 hours to Fordyce, which isn't that far, but it's still a commitment, So Northern California, that's kind of what we do. There's a ton of fun stuff to hit in Nevada, and then like travel wise, the only place I've really off-roaded like in a Jeep outside of California has been like San Hollow, and I don't think I've actually hit Moab in a Jeep yet. Lots of times on a dirt bike, but it's not on a Jeep yet. So it's still a progression of changing over to the 4 wheels. So
yeah, I think some of that comes with age. As your knees start to, you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't hit those bumps like I used to on anything.
Yeah.
I can barely get up the stairs some days.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I hear it.
All I would say is that if you wheeled Moab with 2 wheels, you're probably good. You've seen it. There's so much other cool places to go wheeling, especially just like even in Utah. Like go check out the Swell and some of those other spots. Like,
yeah,
I will continue to pound on that drum, man. There is some really awesome wheeling outside of Moab
for sure.
Utah.
For sure.
Well, I mean, Sand Hollow is a perfect example of it.
But Sand Hollow is wicked. There's so much cool stuff there, and like you said, San Rafael Swell. Like we've been riding dirt bikes there for years. I've never taken a Jeep down there, but San Rafael Swell is where 5 Miles of Hell is, which is like the hardest motorcycle trail in the country. And so like,
oh really?
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. I don't know. There's a lot of controversy upon it, but for many years that was the hardest motorcycle trail in the United States. So,
interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up.
And then like even like up in Montana, Idaho, and Oregon and Washington, there's wheeling everywhere that I need to hit. So yeah, time to do some traveling.
Seriously, man, that's all I could tell you to do is just find an excuse and then go. Like we in the middle of COVID, somebody's like, "Hey, we want you to map some trails out on Drummond Island." I'm like, "Let's go, let's do it. I'm game. Let's go check out some new terrain."
Yeah.
So yeah, take every opportunity you can, man.
Well, and I'm trying to do that for sure, and then. Luckily now having an off-road business, like I'm like, okay, well, there's an event here. Okay, let's go. And then let's go wheeling. Right. So it's been working out. We just need to start branching out, more and go north a little bit and have some fun.
Yeah. I think with any of these, you kind of start to learn exactly what it is that your individual niche is looking for from you. So you were able to kind of make some tweaks and then do some things to kind of get to a bigger audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had to kind of go through your catalog of parts that you offer on a regular basis, is there anything, especially for obviously for Jeeps, that you have that are just kind of your weld-in kits, like you see the shock towers and all that kind of stuff? Is there like one thing that you would say that most Jeep owners should probably have out of all your stuff? Like a blanket?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
The bumpers that I sell, they're like the smallest most low profile, hardest core bumpers that are on the market. But they're
Right.
not for everybody because they're a lot of work to put on. You have to cut the frame and you have to drill holes and you have to do a lot of things to put them on. I've been making parts for like the harder core side of things, but in retrospect of the Jeep world, that's only 5% maybe of the Jeepers out there that are going to be willing to do that work and cut their frames and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why I just released like my bolt-on front bumper, right? Because
Right.
most of the Jeepers out there, that's more of their bread and butter, where they're
I mean, I'm one of those people. I mean,
yeah,
I'm the guy with 35s and a 2.5-inch lift.
yeah,
And it's part of the reason I started this show because I'm like, I know there's a ton of us out there that
Mhm.
are doing this on a regular basis. And we don't have the 40s and the, double triangulated rears.
right.
It's, of course, all of my co hosts, but not me.
But honestly, like I think that is why like what you were saying, Jeep has saturated the market because
Mm.
on a 2-inch lift with 37s or 35s can go almost anywhere. And
Yeah,
if
it
it
really can.
can't go there, it's probably because you're doing something wrong. Because
Yeah.
there's such capable vehicles with very minimal modifications.
Yep.
And that's where 90% of the market is of the Jeepers. They're going out on the weekends, having fun, and they're still driving to work on Monday, and that's their Jeep, and that's awesome. And so that's where I am starting to push some of my bolt-on parts because those guys, they're going to end up smashing up a front bumper, right? Okay, cool. Let's bolt this on. You won't have that problem again. And then
Right.
maybe down the road, 5-10 years down the road, maybe there's a progression where they do want to enter that harder core market and they want to, cut some frames and put some cool stuff on. And then
And they come to you to do it.
yeah, yeah,
And that's fantastic. I love hearing that for a whole host of reasons. I mean, we tell people on the show all the time, like you've got to figure out how you like to wheel before you start putting stuff on your vehicle, and then once you do, don't go, don't overkill it. I have a TJ I don't have anymore because someone convinced me to put a 4-inch lift on it and make it into a rock crawler.
yeah,
I'm not a rock crawler. It's just not what I do.
right,
Um,
right.
and I wish I still had that Jeep, and I just don't because of it. And I know if I gotten better advice, like start slow and add that bolt-on bumper first, and then see what you do with it. And then in a couple years, feel like now I need a smaller, stubbier one. I want to get this one cut in, and because now I'm doing this stuff in Sand Hollow, and I need that kind of approach angle. Do
Right.
that.
And that's kind of like I talk to a lot of folks and I offer free consultations for anybody that just wants to like bullshit about their Jeep and what they want to do with it. Because a lot of guys
I think you should turn that into your podcast, man.
yeah, that's not a bad idea. I should record some of those.
See, I'll give that one to you free, but you just got to come back on the show every once in a while and tell us
Anytime,
about
dude.
how successful you are.
Yeah,
Okay.
anytime. That's a good idea. But so like, a lot of guys they have their Jeeps and they've started hitting a couple trails and they know they want to change something, but they don't know what yet. So like we'll have some conversations and I try to, give them some helpful tips and give them some options that are gonna accomplish the goals that they want to do. And
Right.
sometimes that's not with my parts. Like, and that's fine because your Jeep needs to fit your needs and it goes into your garage and that's what needs to be the most important, not getting a part sale and that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter, that's not part of the community.
Well, and within this community, when you do stuff like that, it people talk to each other and they're like, "Yeah, dude, I didn't buy anything from KrashFab, but man, they offered me some great advice and they have some great gear. And I know you do X, Y, and Z, which is outside of what I do, but that's exactly what they do. So give them a call. They've got some really cool stuff, and they'll give you some great advice."
Yeah.
And I think companies like that, you'll be in the game longer just because the community will support you no matter what. But it's good for the community. I think it serves all of us to kind of just be helping each other because we live in an influencer age, right? Everybody's got an angle to sell something.
Right.
Everybody's trying to push their product, and everybody's got sales objectives to meet and stuff like that. But
Right.
at some level, you just got to help each other out, and that happens on the trail. It doesn't always happen like when we're having those kinds of conversations about gear.
Yeah, and I think that's more important, honestly, because nobody's going to come talk to me if the only thing I'm going to say is buy my stuff is the best. And right?
Right.
Like, and obviously like I like my stuff and I think it's designed very well, but
Right.
that doesn't mean it fits everybody's needs or budgets. So
Right.
at the same time, I'm still part of the community too, where I don't have an ego where I need to say, no, you have to buy my stuff or I'm not talking to you. Or no, you can't
Yeah.
come on my run and hang out with me because you have this on your rig and I don't sell that. Like I just think that that's crap. So yeah, I'm not about that.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you saying that. We've talking about that lately, and I think we're coming up on as an inflection point of some kind in the community about that kind of stuff. And it was kind of, and I'll share this with you real quick, just kind of a small tangent. Like we were at the glow party at the Trail Hero event,
Okay,
and I was
cool.
just like, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I had a great time at it, and I had a good time talking to everybody. But as I kind of I took a step back and sat down for a few minutes, and I'm looking around, and there's all the RPM steering guys, and there's all the Apex guys, and there's all the, whatever lights, the nacho lights guys. And then it was all this, it was so subsected and divided, and everybody was kind of in their camps. And I'm just like, okay, this has to stop. Like we'll get there. It just, there has to be an inflection point.
Unfortunately, on the industry side of things, there's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of cancel culture. There's a lot of hurt feelings from companies towards other companies, and
Yeah.
I don't operate like that. I kind of have my business plan and path where I'm headed, and if you make cool stuff and you're cool, like let's hang out.
Yeah.
But
Let's make cool stuff together.
yeah, and I'm all about that and making friends and partners in the industry, but that doesn't go across the board. So it's a hard one. Yeah.
It is. And yeah, and I know I just kind of touched on it, and I have a feeling it's probably one of those things I'll end up talking about this entire season of the show, because it was so apparent to me. I don't, before this last year of doing the podcast, I hadn't done a ton of those kinds of events, and this was the first time that I'd been in that concentrated in an event. And I'm just like, why are we all like, why is it these dividing lines between places? Like I know you, like we live 10 minutes from each other, and you're over on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's silly to me, and I understand why it's happening. But I feel like folks like yourself, I feel like people who have started businesses in the last 2 years are just like, that's just not how I want to operate. And I think you guys are going to be the folks that hang around, and so that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do.
So, all right. Well, let's say you were a high school guidance counselor, and I have a feeling that people around you would say that would be a terrible idea.
Oh yeah.
But if you were a high school guidance counselor and somebody came to you and asked you like how to get into like kind of doing welding and kind of getting like kind of starting down that path that you did, and whether or not they want to start their own business or they just kind of want to be able to cut their frame and install their KrashFab bumper that they got themselves.
Yeah.
What's the best way to kind of get started down that path?
So and it's funny because I just am in the process of kind of making a good guideline for my own little YouTube podcast about this. So this is
Awesome.
good question.
Which will be available on CrashTube on YouTube at some point in the very near future.
Soon.
See how that works?
So my advice to people is, I without a doubt think that everybody should take a welding course. Most community colleges across the country offer welding courses, and you're going to sit in the classroom and you're going to learn how to stick weld and run an oxyacetylene torch. That's what the 101 class is going to talk to you about. But do it, because it's going to teach you all the basics. And 9 times out of 10, if you're on a trail doing a trail fix, you're probably using a stick welder. So
right,
being able to do that, and actually I did that in Sound Hollow. Sam, he broke a control arm and we welded it up on the trail. My buddy had a badass trail welder. So it's a skill that you can use and apply, but it's also going to teach you the fundamentals and the basics of what amperage and all these different settings do, and teach you how to set a machine and teach you to control the puddle and be able to do your own stuff. So I recommend everybody start there. And then once you've taken a class and you've gotten some experience and you've got a decent machine, then you start practicing. And when I say practicing, I mean practice. And the worst thing that people do, and they do it all the time, is they go to Harbor Freight and they buy a welder, then they go buy a cage kit and they learn how to weld on their cage kit. And I've seen so many cages on the trails that I wouldn't put my mother-in-law in. And I like my mother-in-law. And
I
yeah,
appreciate that you qualified that, because I do know of at least a few listeners that would have wondered. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. And it's one of those things where it's just like, why would you learn on the biggest safety thing on a vehicle? Like a roll cage is there to literally protect your life, and you're going to learn how to weld, a skill that they say only less than 1% of the population of the world knows how to do. You're going to learn that skill on the fly on something to protect your life. Nope, you're an idiot. So
Yeah.
take a class, practice, 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 practice on stuff that doesn't kill people, and then start
Yeah.
having fun with your rig. So that's my advice.
You're right. My dad did a lot of welding. In fact, I have an arc welder in the garage that I do not yet know how to use, but it is on my list. He passed away a couple years ago, and it was one of the few things I was able to finally actually get out of his garage,
Nice.
and I want to learn how to use it. But I remember when he started learning how to do it, and he did community college. But here in Colorado, you don't have to do community college. There's some trade places out here where it's just a specific course.
Right.
You don't even have to go to a college campus. It'll just be a trade class.
Yep.
And all you need to do is get started with that kind of stuff. At the very least, if it doesn't kind of spark something in you, no pun intended, that wants you to kind of, continue with it, at the very least, yeah, you can do your own repairs on the trail, or you can help repairs on the trail, or maybe you can just identify really poor work by somebody else done to your Jeep.
Yeah. And I think that's where all the fundamentals come from. And that class is going to show you, like, okay, like, I'm not good at this. Maybe I need to pay somebody else to do it, or I need to find my buddy Bob and get him a 30 pack and we can go do this on the weekend because Bob's a certified welder and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to help people identify, their skill sets. And like you said too, maybe it sparks something in you like it did to me. And it's like, okay, this is cool. I'm melting metal with my bare hands and making stuff stick together. It's freaking rad. So,
Yeah.
and then you're going to start getting obsessed with it like I did, and you're going to really start learning and perfecting the craft. So, and that takes years. And I tell people all the time, like, okay, I did that class when I was 18. I welded and practiced almost nonstop, on my free time for 10 years before I even thought about welding professionally or for other people. And
Right.
so I put that time in, I put that work in to learn and perfect my skill. And even after I started doing it I was working in like agricultural companies, working on excavators and Caterpillars and stuff like that. Even doing that for multiple years, I still didn't get to a point where I was like, okay, I can weld anything I want, anywhere, anytime. And, I feel pretty confident about that now. And no, I'm not the best, but I can weld, so it's just, it takes time to get that confidence though. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like wheeling, right? Like you go out and you do an easy trail that first few times out. Let me backtrack that up. Those of us who have appropriately gauged ourselves properly, and I'm looking at you, Pope and Randy, when you're listening to this episode later. Most of us start out on, the simpler trails and kind of get the dirt roads and the back roads, and you kind of just keep graduating and get more and more comfortable. And then maybe you go to a sand hollow event and some people teach you to get some more confidence in you. It's the same stuff, man. It's just,
for sure.
I think these trades, I wish more people knew how to do it. I think part of the reason why, it's so, it's expensive thing to do, and part of the reason is because there's so few people that are willing to put all of that effort that you were just talking about into it. But I think welding is an art. It's like pictures, it's like everything else that requires any level of attention to detail and skill that makes for the best piece of work when you're done. And in this case, sometimes it's people's safety that's at stake.
Well, and I look at it with all the stuff you said is 100% correct. And I look at it, with that too is it has to be a passion, right? Like,
Yeah.
you take that seat time with anything you're doing and with passion, and that's going to create some results that are worthwhile. And
Yeah.
and I also apply it too to work to like real world stuff. Like you wouldn't go to a doctor that was his first day on the job and he went down to Harbor Freight Doctor and he bought himself a stethoscope and a jacket and walked into the office. Like you wouldn't let him work on your body. But
Wait, is there a Harbor Freight Doctor? Because my health insurance is real expensive.
but like that's where people I think get things twisted. Like just because you own a welder doesn't mean you're a welder. And
Right.
and I think that people should have that passion to either learn or just pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah. I honestly think that one of the ways that you can, one of the ways that I have learned over time what I'm willing to do and what I am not willing to do on the Jeep is by trying it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll try it and be like, nope, this has got a professional person who knows how to do this, needs to go do this.
Right.
I'm not willing to struggle with this for a week for a job that should take a professional 2 hours to do. And that's just how you do it. And then there are other things where you're like, wow, yeah, I really can I don't need to spend $1,000 to have someone run electrical wiring. I can do those things myself.
Right.
And you learn and you kind of get it done. And maybe the first time isn't quite right, but you get it done correctly. And I will reiterate this again, although there is a disclaimer that plays before the show. Be careful. Like if you're welding, maybe don't make the first thing that you try to weld as your project be your roll cage.
Yeah.
Like just maybe start with a bumper and make sure that sticks on there for a while and doesn't rust out or have problems.
100%.
And take it to a friend. Be like, hey, is this okay?
Yeah. Yeah. That's like my biggest pet peeve is people go buy a roll cage kit and then they get a welder and they're like, yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, you're suicidal is what you are.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, Jesus take the wheel on that level, that's up to you, buddy. Yeah. But I'm not getting in the Jeep with you if I find that out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some sketchy stuff that went on during COVID, especially, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and which is cool to a certain extent, right? Like you're home and, you want to learn a new skill. Okay, cool. Like go for it.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. I'm all about people doing stuff themselves, right? Because that's how I got into this whole trade passion. Is I couldn't afford somebody to do it, so I started doing it myself. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I fully support it, but you also have to do it smart. So that's
just a little bit of common sense, a dose of it. Just be careful what you're doing. Just make sure your life and somebody else's life isn't in the balance of you trying something new.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty good. That's a decent blanket statement. I'll leave that one out there. I think that's good for everybody involved. All right, so what else is on KrashFab's agenda for the upcoming year? Is it do you have any big events, or are you just kind of playing it by ear? Or are you still in the planning stages?
So I haven't really solidified too much for 2025 yet. The only thing I really have in the books, there's a Northern California kind of a snow run kind of a deal called Winter Fun Fest. So I'm going to go hit that event. I've never been, so it'll be a new one for me. So I'm hitting that event. Past that, I don't have anything planned for 2025 yet. It's not that I'm not doing anything. I just kind of haven't planned that far ahead yet. And it's kind of going to make some evaluations of what we want to do company-wise for 2025, if we want to mix things up or if we want to do what we've been doing. So, yeah, it's just a work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know if we're recording this kind of at the beginning of December, and I realize that not everybody, hell, I haven't. All I've done is put dates on the calendar saying I might be doing something this week, and it's kind of what I said to my wife.
Yeah.
Just to prepare you.
Yeah. That's about as far as I've gotten as well. So.
Okay. I mean, I feel like Trail Hero is going to happen. I feel like there's got to be at least one other Western thing that I do out here. I don't know what to make of it yet this year. And I want to do Winter 4x4. Rich and everybody's trying to talk me into doing Hump and Bump after SEMA next year. Okay. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. There's so many fun events across the country. It's like, it's really difficult to pick which ones to actually go to, which ones to just go to and go have fun, or which ones I need to go work and like do a booth. And it's a tough struggle,
Do you guys get I realize that a lot of your business is physical, local, but from a an internet standpoint, do you guys get a lot of business from out east, or is it kind of
Yeah.
starting up?
No, we ship quite a few things to, back east. I mean, even, New York and Florida and Tennessee, and a lot of stuff to Texas.
Okay.
We people ship us Jeeps from all over the country. So like right now we've got a big build. The guy lives in Colorado. So we're doing that big build right now. It's been growing, ever evolving, and yeah, it's cool to see the progression.
Okay. I kind of asked that because I feel like the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion has become a giant vendor event now there every summer.
Yeah, and
And
that one is on my radar, and
yeah,
like when I talk to like my friends at like KC and all the other big companies, when I talk to them about events, I'm like, hey, which event should we go to? That literally is the top of everybody's list right now is Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. So I'm definitely considering it for next year. But from California to Tennessee, to drive out there, it's like a 4 or 5 day drive, and it's like
yeah, it's a hell of a commitment.
it's a big commitment, to get there and back, plus the cost of the booth and the event, and so it's a big bullet to bite. We're still a really small business.
Yeah.
I kind of have a skeleton crew, and some guys work part time, and some guys are full time, and it's pretty much me for the most part doing everything. So it's a big commitment to go that far. So
Yeah, I get that piece of it, man. Totally. And yeah, I think it's one of those events that has just kind of popped up in the last couple of years as just being a much larger event than I think anybody thought it was going to be. Because there's not a ton of wheeling out there, and there is some. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parks and stuff like that. But up until that event, I don't think there was a large draw for businesses to kind of come out there and show their wares. So
yeah,
either way, though, I imagine if you're getting some business out that way, you'll continue to get it. And
Yeah.
the more, it's the thing is that KrashFab logo begats another KrashFab logo, and so forth and so on. And
right.
just keep chugging away at it, man.
Yeah, it's all we can do. Just keep progressing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like I've kept you here long enough, my friend. Is there anything else that we should be touching base on about KrashFab or about Justin before I let you go back to your house and family and business obligations?
No, it's been a really fun talking to you, man. I appreciate the opportunity, and if anybody listening needs some assistance with their build or just want to balance a couple of ideas, I'm always here to listen and give you my 2 cents. And if there's a part that we can help you out with, cool. And if not,
Yeah.
we'll see you on the trail.
Seriously, folks, I don't. We have never had this happen on the show before, but I would say an industry professional is offering you advice about Jeeps and how to build your Jeep, about how you're using it, and he's straight up telling you whether or not he would, or he's not necessarily out there to sell his own wares. He's just out there to kind of help people and show stuff. But check him out. He's it's Justin's on. Let's see, KrashFab's on Instagram at KrashFab.
Yep.
You are on YouTube as KrashTube. These are both with a K, by the way. All of these are with a K. I apologize. And KrashFab.com.
Yes.
The mothership, if you will, of all of the stuff. Check them out, man. They've got some really cool stuff on there. Justin, I really enjoyed meeting you in Sand Hollow. I've had a fantastic time talking with you tonight. And man, I hope to wheel with you at some point in the next year, and wish you nothing but the best for KrashFab, man. I think you guys make some really cool stuff. Like it was beefy stuff, man. Like it is stuff that I would, I'm at a place in my life where if I'm going to put it in the Jeep, it has to protect somebody that's in the Jeep with me. So if it's a family member or a kid or something like that. And that's the kind of stuff when I walked by your guys' booth, I'm just like, that is just some of the thickest, most solid looking stuff that I have seen. And it's good. It's good stuff, man. That's all I got to say.
Well, and that's the whole goal, right? It's like, I'm not going to sell you a half-ass part. I'm going to sell you the best that I can make and the best that I can design to protect your vehicle. So that's what we do. And yeah, it's fun.
Great. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Justin. Again, that's KrashFab.com. Instagram is KrashFab and YouTube is KrashTube. Justin, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll see y'all next time at the Trailhead.
All right. Sounds good.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hello, trailheads, and welcome to the Trailhead. Before the trails start today, we need to have a short safety meeting. Off-roading is an exhilarating but inherently risky sport. The insights and opinions that are shared by our hosts and any experts or guests on the podcast are intended to inform and inspire, not replace professional guidance. The Trailhead guests, partners, and any sponsors are not liable for any actions that you take based on what you hear. It is your responsibility to seek professional advice and make informed decisions, especially when attempting potentially dangerous activities. Always check current trail conditions and comply with local laws and regulations. Off-roading requires careful preparation and respect for safety, so ensure that you're well prepared before hitting the trails. And now that that's out of the way, buckle up and let the stories begin.
Let it up, let it roll, feel the ground shake. Pedal down, dust flying, no time to waste. The trailhead's calling, engines fire on a roll. This is where trails start and stories unfold. Under starlit skies, where the wild things roam. Every trail a journey, every Jeep a home. Meet me at the trailhead, where the wild ones run, where the dust kicks high and the day's not done. With the road wide open and the dirt in our soul, this is where trails start and our stories unfold. Our stories unfold. Oh, when the trail gets tough, we crank it up. Dig down deep, yeah, we never stay stuck. Jeeps on the ridge, friends by our side. Off-road family, it's one hell of a ride. Ranks keep rolling, the days wear thin. Gonna tell our stories round the trailhead again. Meet me at the trailhead, where the wild ones run, where the dust kicks high and the day's not done. With the road wide open and the dirt in our soul, this is where trails start and our stories unfold. Our stories unfold. Meet me at the trailhead, where we roam, where trails start and stories unfold.